Welcome back to the program. So, the first thing that I want to talk about is this historic trip that President Trump has taken from Saudi Arabia to now Qatar, whichever one it is. I know Wayne and I were going back and forth on that one. But what this does more than anything else is it helps to modernize the thinking of the Islamic world. In other words, let's not use bombs and missiles and nuclear threats. Let's use innovation. Let's use commerce. Let's use trade. Let's use, all these different things that we can do and make deals and make more money and things like that. But what it's also doing is it's working in concert over a certain period of time to bring these Muslim countries into new Abraham Accords with Israel. So what President Trump is doing is twofold. Number one, he's trying to eliminate as many possible future enemies of Israel by normalizing relations. Okay, that's why he even went to Syria and talked to the president of Syria now, who was a former terrorist. And quite frankly, there's no such thing as a former terrorist. Once you're a terrorist and you do those things, you're always a terrorist. So he's lowering sanctions on them. What he's doing is he's trying to portray that there's a new America, there's a new American influence out there, and there's a new way of thinking. And we want you to stop thinking like the 7th century savages that you have been for hundreds and thousands of years, and let's move into a better, brighter future. He's also eliminating China's ability to find financial and trade partners. That's another thing he's doing. So what he's doing is twofold. He's helping Israel by eventually going to sign these agreements and things like that with Israel to eliminate the threat against Israel. He's also going to help get the Iran situation under check, because now you're going to have more and more of these Muslim countries lined up against Iran, so they're going to be squeezed as well. But ultimately, the goal is China. The goal is China. China presents the largest existential threat to the United States and all of humanity. I have said that since they helped steal the election in 2020, and I've never deviated from that, and I still believe that. But what we are doing is we are squeezing the financial life out of China. They already have their own problems, right? They have this lying down thing that's been going on for many years, where these people can't get jobs, they can't do things, the job markets are insane, and so they're checking out. They're just checking out. They're not working. They're checking out of society. And of course, they have the imbalance, right, of not having as many babies and females because of their one-child policy. So they're kind of like cutting off, their ability to reproduce down the line. So China in the future, at this rate, they're not going to be anywhere near as powerful as they have been, sadly, under the Otto Penn administration, allowing them to be for the last 4 years. And so that's the gist of what President Trump is doing. And I don't know where, the rumors have come from that Wayne heard that Netanyahu and Trump are at odds. I've never heard anything about that. These are two people that have known each other for about 40 years. I mean, they know each other from their time in college and things like that. They've been friends for many, many years. I think at one point they even did some real estate deals in the 80s together. They're lifelong friends, so I'm not sure what is going on. It is true that he didn't visit Israel when he was in the Middle East, but that doesn't mean that Israel wasn't a guiding principle. And, while he's talking to all these foreign leaders, he's trying to line things up for Israel's protection in the long run. So even if Israel wasn't there, they were still represented, at least in my opinion, in his own heart. So again, we'll see what happens here, but I think this was a historic visit, number one, to these countries. And number two, look at the money Look at the money he's bringing into the United States, 1.2 trillion. You got another 600 billion from another one. I mean, all the money that's going to be coming in, they're estimating at least 220,000 American jobs just from this one visit alone. Not to mention gas prices are going to go down. We're going to be drilling here. They're going to be compensating us there. And so, it's going to be very, very interesting. So I wanted to point that out. But the other thing that I want to talk about is this racism, because that's what it is. It's anti-white racism from the left saying, how dare you bring into the country white South Africans that are actually being murdered and killed and genocided and having their land taken from them and all these other things. Why are you doing that when you could have these MS-13 gang members, these Tren de Agua gang members, these Sinaloa cartel members, these Chinese spies and Confucius Institute, infiltrators, and all these different people that are non-white that are going to cause problems here for the people in this country. And so they have everything backwards. Everything backwards. None of these South Africans, are related to any gangs. None of them probably have criminal records. They're not all tatted up. I mean, they came over here waving American flags. It was, full families. And they have been prosecuted. And so for the media to sit here and lie, that's why I call them prostitutes, to sit here and lie and say that these people in South Africa have not been persecuted is 100% inaccurate and a false statement. 100%. And so I'll give you some proof of it. South African's leader, real tyrant, his name is Julius Malema. He admits that what President Trump has said about the genocide going on in South Africa is true. He admits it in his own words, I would play the video, but the problem is you can't really understand what he's saying. So I'll read it to you instead. So it says, and this is him, Malema. We want to send a strong message to the United States of America, its authorities, just like we did with the Australian authorities, to stay out of South Africa's business. South Africa is a post-colonial country with deep inequalities that were long designed by apartheid and colonialism. Our land appropriations program seeks to realize the idea of equality and human dignity. Here's where he admits that these people are being persecuted right here. Through our land expropriation. Well, let's see. What does expropriation mean? Well, that's a fancy way of saying confiscation, perhaps. Eminent domain, perhaps. That's what it means. It means to seize or take something from someone. That's what expropriation sounds nice and wonderful. Doesn't sound like it's anything to worry about, right? Expropriation, big word, but that's what it means. Through our land expropriation program, we are pushing the white farmers to share their land. Really, share their land? No, take their land. Share their land, which was gained through a criminal enterprise against humanity. Be that as it may, we must put it on record that Donald pathological liar Trump, this is what this idiot says, we're not scared of you and the United States either, or any of the Western imperialist forces. Donald Trump is not saying anything we haven't heard from white people. In all the years I've been on record and said I've still to meet a white person who supports expropriation of land without compensation, so why are you shocked? As for Donald Trump, I don't have time for your nonsense. I expect this. So that's what he is saying. He is literally saying land expropriation program. Now, how do you know they're killing them? Well, number one, there's videos all over the place and images of just crosses all along the countrysides in South Africa and Johannesburg and all over the areas there. That's number one. Number two, there's actual witnesses that have watched these people being murdered on their own properties. And well, I don't know, maybe because the people that work for the government of South Africa are wearing shirts that I'll show you in the thumbnail that say land or death. Perhaps maybe that's a clue. Okay? So it's disingenuous for the prostitutes in our media to sit there and say, oh, these South Africans, they're not being genocide. That's just a myth. That's a right-wing conspiracy theory. Oh, really? Huh? No, it's not. Not at all. And the interesting thing is that these people are actually really being persecuted. MS-13 gang members are not being persecuted. Trent and Agua, they're not being persecuted. You know who's being persecuted? The American people. Being murdered and killed in our streets because these scumbags have been dropped into our country. That's what's happening. So I'm glad that we have some of these South Africans coming in. We ought to bring them in and ship the other ones out. And there ain't nothing racist about that. Okay, this is unbelievable. I'm going to end it tonight with this. So we know about Ed Martin. He is doing a phenomenal job. He's opened up a lot of investigations. There's an investigation that he's doing right now. I honestly didn't know anything about this at all. I never even heard of this group. You probably have never heard of this group either. There's a group out there that preys on children online, and they're called the 764 group. I've never heard of this before, but this came to my attention. I looked into it. Not only did I look into it, it's from the United States Attorney's Office. Okay, this is one of those official press releases from their office, and it's pretty disturbing stuff. Listen to this. Leaders of the so-called 764 gang arrested and charged for operating a global child exploitation enterprise. Leonidas Vargianis, also known as War 21, a citizen of the United States, however, he's living in Greece, and Prasan Nepal, also known as Trippy, 20 years old, of North Carolina, were arrested and charged for operating an international child exploitation enterprise known as 764, a nihilistic, violent extremist network. They were arrested yesterday in Greece and as well as North Carolina, and they have court appearances in D.C. The charges were announced by U.S. Attorney Edward Martin. Ed's doing a good job. There's a lot of things he's working on we don't know about. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Assistant Director in charge Stephen Jensen in the Washington Field Office, and the FBI Assistant Director in charge Christopher G. Raya of the New York Field Office. According to this affidavit in the District of Columbia, 764 is a network of nihilistic violent extremists who engage in criminal conduct in the United States and abroad, and they seek to destroy civilized society through their corruption and exploitation of vulnerable populations, which often include minors. The 764 network's accelerationist goals include social unrest and the downfall of the current world order, including the United States government. The defendants engaged in a coordinated criminal enterprise and led a core subgroup within 764 known as 764 Inferno. They let them operate through an encrypted messaging application. They directed, participated in, and otherwise caused the production and distribution of child sexual abuse material, CSAM, which is basically child pornography, and the defendants facilitated the grooming, manipulation, and extortion of minor victims. And then it says, both of these men allegedly ordered their victims to commit acts of self-harm and engaged in psychological torment and extreme violence against these minors. The affidavit alleges that the group targeted vulnerable children online, coercing them into producing degrading and explicit content under threat and manipulation. This content included cut signs and blood signs through which young girls would cut symbols into their bodies. The defendants and their co-conspirators around the globe used these pornographic images and other gore and violent material to create digital lore books, which were used as digital currency within this 764 network. They traded these things, they archived them, and they encrypted them in, quote, vaults, and used them as a means to recruit new members or maintain status within the network. The affidavit also details how the defendants instructed other members in grooming tactics and set content production expectations for new recruits. In multiple instances, defendants threatened and caused their victims to engage in self-mutilation, online and in-person sexual acts, harm to animals, sexual exploitation of their own siblings, and even bestiality. Threats of violence, suicide, and murder. Also, according to the complaint and the affidavit, the defendants exploited at least 8 minor children victims across multiple jurisdictions with content traced back to children as young as 13 years old. The network's activities span from the late 2020 area through early 2025, with core leadership roles attributed to both defendants throughout this period. The allegations in this case are not only disturbing, they are also every parent's nightmare, said U.S. Attorney Ed Martin. Quote, the number of victims allegedly exploited by these defendants and the depths and depravity are absolutely staggering. Justice demands that our response be swift in order to ensure public safety and hold the wrongdoers accountable and bring the victims some sense of closure so that they can heal. These defendants are accused of orchestrating one of the most heinous online child exploitation enterprises we have ever encountered. A network built on terror, abuse, and the deliberate targeting of young children, said Attorney General Pam Bondi. Quote, we will find those who exploit and abuse children, prosecute them, and dismantle every single part of their operations. The charges against these subjects represent our resolve to dismantle violent networks that seek to destroy civilized society, said Assistant Director in Charge Jensen of the FBI Washington Field Office. Our work is not done until justice is restored to all of these impacted victims. Pretty sick. So I never heard of this group before, 764. You can look it up yourself if you want. But it just goes to show you that in order for us to get back to where we need to be in America, we must take the threats, the physical threats, the safety threats, the national security threats out of the country. And anyone that is going after our most vulnerable in society, which are children and the elderly, you damn right I'm going to be on those 100%. And so I'm glad to see that they are shutting down, these pedophile rings. They're taking down these fentanyl cartels. They're getting rid of these gang members, regardless and despite these judges' best efforts to keep them here in the country. So good things are moving along. And again, he's also looking, this guy can chew gum, and walk at the same time. And a lot of these people are skilled and gifted to be able to do exactly that. And trust me, they're going to be going after a lot of these deep state bad actors. When? That I don't know because I don't have a crystal ball. But I would say you're going to start hearing a lot more about certain arrests and indictments coming up in the next 90 to 120 days. In the meantime, the economy is going to start roaring back towards the end of the summer, end of the year, and man, things are going to be good. Trust me on that. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.